Yeah, so let's take this time to read through what's there. Feel free to ask any questions while waiting for Max. Let me pin him.
Also, one note, these proposals could be kind of long and detailed, so let's try to like focus on the pros and cons, and then the final proposal could be kind of coalesced together at the end or something. But let's not like spend too long on each proposal.
Yeah. I wasn't intending to go through the proposals at all, actually. Wanted to go through the questions, and there's a time box for each question. Yeah.
Perfect.
So we won't overrun. Wait, this channel is locked at 25. Let me try to raise the number.
If you activate your cameras, the limit is 25 for this day.
Oh, okay, thanks for that. Brian and Max, sorry, and Michael, can you guys turn off our cameras? That might solve it. Yeah, that solved it. Thanks, guys. Wow, good catch. Yeah, for those who just joined us, we can start by reading the agenda dot that I posted in the channel at the top. Why isn't Max here? Okay, in the consideration for time, I think we'll just get started. So if you have read through all of the proposals written there, I think most of them, how should I say this? Yeah, so a lot of them assume assume the answer to a different question, which is are we trying to do a quick fork and deployment and move on? So the big question, one of the big questions for us today is that should OpenBook be like a short-term hotfix where we fork Serum V3, remove the reliance on FTX upgrade authority, or should we like actively sought to improve it via independent contributors or a core team running on it? So there's some improvements that can make to V3 and some improvements we can make to Serum, like removing the needs for crans like ellipses or stuff like that. So I was wondering whether anybody had any thoughts here. Maybe Brian or Michael can start off with this. Start off first, yeah.
Sure. So as far as are we doing a quick fork and then moving on to something better? So the thing that would be better would be Phoenix, which is coming out soon. Based on my understanding, Phoenix has some permissioned liquidity model. So I think you have to be whitelisted to do maker orders. I could be incorrect. That might be on just DevNet or something, I'm not sure. But either way, I think a parallel order book, say there's some state-of-the-art order book that comes out in QN, I think a parallel order book should be maintained with public utility in mind and unencumbered from, rent seeking.
Yeah, I have a similar opinion there. To have a public utility set up, and I would definitely lean away from issuing special tokens or anything like that, because that can turn pretty toxic if you start to go down that path. And if the objective is to have a community resource and community led, then probably try to keep it lean. And then maybe even do it in such a way that people can build on top of that, embrace composability, and allow people to build on top of the base layer. And then we're not fragmenting liquidity as much would be a hope. That if we can get everybody in the ecosystem to adopt the base layer like this, we don't have 3 different exchanges competing for the same liquidity. So. So I think I'm of a general mind there with Skynet.
Yeah, does anyone from the audience have an against opinion?
So it sounds like maintaining this kind of open source effort is consensus based on the lack of no one speaking up. So
Yeah.
yeah, public utility it is.
Okay, then yes, let me throw one then. So I would say that I wouldn't push for not maintaining and or like letting it decline, but should we push for actively improving or trying to make OpenBook keep up with the innovation in the rest of the space? What do you guys think?
I think trying to set growth targets is going to lead to possibly bad outcomes. I think it should just occur organically as it is right now. I think goals will be reached as a result of that. There's PRs and issues that development is occurring in. So.
Yeah. So that's on the growth side. But how about like, because we know that some things can be improved, like maybe we should maybe removing the reliance on trends. Should we invest that time and energy on the dev side, or should just let it happen organically? Like some random guy will just come along and like, oh, let me remove trends from this. So
As far as like engineering improvements over time, obviously that requires Rust engineers. I think some of the Rust engineers surrounding Mango are contributing right now, and they're pretty experienced. So there's a pretty strong contributor base coming from some Mango contributors as far as further development over time.
There might be a role here for community grants as well. Different, some of the larger players in the ecosystem could offer up a grant to work on some aspect like that. For example, auto cranking instead of a separate off-chain process. So there's still got to be ways to get this done organically, like you said, with different people kind of pitching in the funds required to make it happen.
Makes sense. So another round of like anybody from the audience wants or the community wants to like have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Hey guys, what's up? Just I guess some feedback from me, just being from the previous Serum mod team. Like the biggest gripe from users was having to settle funds and crank things, and why doesn't everything just update when you trade? So, and I realize that there's technical limitations to that, but from a user perspective, it was very clunky and confusing, and people were constantly freaking out that their money was missing, and like, well, Serum's stolen my money, and I go, well, it's not, it's not stolen, it's just, sitting in it needs to be settled. And then it would further complicate the issue because you would have the UIs not updating live, or there might be RPC usage or whatever, and they would see their money flash in open orders and then it would disappear. So if all that stuff is fixed down the line on the roadmap somehow, some way, from a user perspective, it would really improve things. It would make people want to trade on OpenBook style dexes more, just because it would remove that confusion and worry about where their money is. So I don't know how that is going to fit in with what we're trying to do here, because like it's already been talked about that removing the crank is going to be a big undertaking. So I'll just throw that out there. See especially what the devs think about that.
Yeah, I think we all know that removing the trends is something that will help a lot, but it's a massive effort, and that's why I brought it up. Like, should we try to do these massive improvements that we all know is needed, or should we just let it not make big changes and let it sit? So
yeah, I think early on probably not big changes, right? Yeah, I think early on don't do any big changes, but as a community, where do we want this to go, and do we want it to be is the best thing that we can? I mean, from a user perspective, those were the couple of key points that if we got rid of them, then it would be it'd be really good.
Yeah, I understand. So thanks for bringing it up. Jim, you have something? Let's
Yeah, you know, as everyone rightly mentioned, it should be driven by the community. I think like Serum was such sort of a club, right, which most of the dexes like used and just forked it off or like created all the UIs. So since all these projects are using all these UIs on top of that open source code, why don't we find the solution on the core Solana L1 level itself, how we can incentivize those developments who are contributing to OpenBook right now from the scratch, right? So in that way, all these contributors or the developers or the DAO, whoever is working on the OpenBook project, will have the incentives as so. You know, you don't need any grants and all that stuff, because grants and all this stuff will lead into like politics and, you know, bureaucracy and all that stuff, right? So why don't we have some sort of contract which incentivizes all these developer efforts on chain, you know, and that's how everything is much more transparent. So I don't know what are you guys thoughts, but like I see that as a better solution than grants or something like that, because grants don't work long term.
I'll speak on that. I also agree that grants don't work. I think L1 incentivization is kind of a tax. I mean, what you're suggesting is some sort of tax to pay developers. That's kind of what we're moving away from entirely. I think grants are a terrible model. I think a foundation, while can be nebulous, you know, the Apache Foundation is a successful foundation where there's large benefactors. I think a foundation, you know, it's not funded by any token or incentive. I think that's the best case. We just have to keep this as pure and open as possible, even if it's rougher for the contributors. As of now, there's a pretty decent amount of contributors who are working either as an extension of their own team or otherwise. So I don't think we should add any rent sinking as far as incentivization.
Clarifying question for you on that. If I heard correctly, it sounds like you'd lean against a model that has direct grants for certain features, but you might lean more towards a foundation that people can contribute to, and then the foundation can execute the features and the development and things like that. Did I understand that right?
That's kind of the idea. I mean, grants. One idea is Zeta markets. They have like a bounty list, so it's like if you develop a market maker, you get X $1,000, and it's pretty well defined. So I think defining bounties is the alternative. I mean, it's either a foundation or something like on-chain, and on-chain is what we're moving away from, you know, the funding. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks.
In the short term, I don't know how much dev work this is, but in the short term, is it feasible to have the taker, you know, that, you know, is paying the fee, can that part of that fee be used to turn the crank if required? Is there like an easy fix, like a quick win, or not?
That is being investigated right now. That math is being done.
Yep. Okay, cool. Because I mean, it makes sense to me. Like if somebody wants to buy their thing right now, they have to pay a fee anyway. So just pay that little bit more to push the order through. So.
Yeah, there's a couple models being worked on right now in GitHub discussions.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey guys, I can add some color with respect to the taker user interface. So there is an open PR in the OpenBook Dex repo that like allows the send tick to occur in like a single instruction. I think part of the reason why settlement on existing UIs is pretty unergonomic right now is because like you have to click 2 times to do the settlement, and you also have to create this open orders account if it doesn't already exist. So it's totally possible to like have a single instruction that's able to just make a trade, crosses the book, and settles instantaneously for the taker, but the maker events will still have to go into the queue. That is not a bad interim solution. Obviously, having a crank in general is going to be like pretty bad for overall user experience, but you can improve the taker side like relatively easily.
Yeah, but at least from my experience, that's the people that were complaining the most in the other CM Discord. It was just people, regular users that just wanted to buy dust or or whatever it is, and they go, oh, you know, where's my token? Where's my coin? It's not there. So the makers of, yeah, so it'll get rid of most of the noise, I think.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to bring the conversation back on track. So we briefly touched upon like rent and long-term development. So a quick question is, should we use should we create a new OpenBook token, or should we move on to like Sol or no token instead? Um, I think I think Max has a very good argument for no token, so I'll let him start with that. If you're there.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I thought that the main issue we have right now is that there's like everyone has like kind of like a main job and is just pitching in like part-time. And kind of like the best way to fund a project in crypto is to like figure out the token, right? And so if there were like, you know, like 2 or 3 people coming up, like if I was like a developer coming in here maybe during the next hackathon and like I really like the project and I kind of like want to start taking it to the next level, it would be kind of shit if the tokenomics is already decided, because it's like such an important part of like making a crypto project really work. So I would just say like let's not decide anything here for the people who come later, and just make it work without. And then when there is like sufficient traction in the developer community, maybe like 2 or 3 people who want to go full time on this, then they should figure out what their token does and how it ties into it. I think there's of course tons of good ideas here, and I think everyone has like totally valid points, right? And like how things should work. The only one that I think is like not so important is like the whole idea of like tying it into Sol, because anyways people pay Sol gas fees when they trade, and I don't see why applications should now, like that's kind of like the whole debate about royalties, right? But then kind of like coming in here and saying, hey, this program should pay 10x royalties because why not? It doesn't really make sense, right? So the program is paying network fees like every other program, and if the network fees should be higher, then that's not the issue of this program, right? It's the issue of the network, and this like validator code and consensus code that should fix that. But yeah, so even if people come up later and say, hey, we want the Sol token in this, and they actually want to do the development work, right? And not just slap a token into the code, then that's perfectly fine, right? But I think it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Does anybody have a counterpoint to basically not locking these details down now and focus together on getting traction first, which is what Max is trying to say. Going once, going twice.
Well, I got maybe an example of something where for an improvement for the Ethereum ecosystem, we are actually now turning to the Solana Foundation to receive some grants. Basically, my team and I were developing a Serum DEX connector for an open source trading bot software called Hummingbot. And without the funding of some, let's say, private users of the software, we wouldn't be able to push out open source software like this for people starting or wanting to start market making on Serum, now OpenBook. And we were just talking at an event in Germany with some guys from the Solana Foundation. They said, yeah, they're gonna happily fund this for us because they think OpenBook is a very central part of the Solana ecosystem. But I just wonder how long this sentiment might keep up with the Solana Foundation. If there's anyone who knows maybe more about this, I would be happy to know.
Yeah. Could you maybe restate the question just so I fully understand what you're saying?
So basically, we were applying for a grant, or we want to apply for a grant for something Serum or OpenBook related. Went to the Solana Foundation. They said, yeah, they're gonna cover it, probably. but what if they don't in the future? Do we have then a different model approach? What do you guys think is the best way to fund developments like these?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't speak to like the long-term viability of funding for the project. I can speak to the short-term foundation position on grants for this. So the foundation is very keen on funding grants, at least for the foreseeable future, for OpenBook development so that we can maintain this core piece of liquidity infrastructure for DeFi. However, that well is not infinite. And each one of these grants will be evaluated on a case by case basis. So it's not going to be free money forever, and there needs to be some sort of sustainability model for this, which is why I think I do agree with what Max said, that like we shouldn't be implementing a token design for OpenBook now before like maybe there's some core contributors long term who want to construct the token economics themselves, and once they've like dedicated more of their time to it, I think that's a fair consideration. But I also agree with you that there needs to be some sort of like long-term funding mechanism to make sure that this is a sustainable open source project.
Adding on to that, I do think that we'll see some of the larger players in the space with express a willingness to do grants and to contribute in some way. The larger trading firms, the larger DeFi platforms, they, assuming that they see the utility here, I'm sure they will, that we'll see other sources of funding beyond the Solana Foundation. And that's nice because you know that the interests are more aligned as well. A large trading shop that has a well-aligned interest to succeed, that they may see the opportunity to throw a grant in or throw some funds to a foundation, something like that. So look well beyond the foundation, and especially to find the players that we have alignment of interest.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, they're good.
Okay, fantastic. Finally. So is the issue that we're trying to figure out if we want to have a token now or a token later, rather than we don't even want to have a token at all, right? Because I'm of the opinion that you really don't need a token in the ecosystem. I guess everybody's spoken about grants and other ways to incentivize people to participate, but I think when a token is introduced into, especially a trading platform, the value of the token then becomes the focus for a lot of people, right? Everyone is looking to for the price to appreciate, right? And the more valuable that token is, the less valuable the exchanges. Because if that's going to apply to discounts on fees and stuff, then I don't want to be trading as a trader, and I traded for a very long time. As a trader, I don't want to be trading against the traders who have an embedded advantage over me, right? Especially when you want to start doing a lot of transactions. Those tiny fees make a difference. And if someone else can basically quotes just because they have a lot more tokens than you, they'll very quickly flush you out of the market. And to give you an example, when I traded, when I was making markets for, even lately for a Coinbase derivative, right? Some folks had cheaper FCM fees. They were paying 1 cent, 2 cents a transaction. We were paying 3, almost 4 cents sometimes. And that's enough when you're doing 1 million transactions a day, right? You would very quickly be running up a really expensive outfit than the competition. And so that's basically just, it's going to essentially push out potential traders, and I'm not quite sure that that's necessarily what we want to do. I think as a system and as an infrastructure, let's let the folks that are going to create their markets, let them go figure out how to incentivize folks to trade on their platform. And if someone wants to fund additional features for Serum, then of course they can pay or contribute to the grant. Of course, you can always fork Serum, right? You can always fork the code and create your own exchange in the process. So for me, it's no token now and no token ever.
I'd also echo that, but again, I'm just one contributor, so I think people have a variety of opinions, but consensus now seems to be no token. I'm personally no token ever, so I'm sure there is.
So I have a bit of a differing opinion on the token. I think like there's actually some benefits to structuring things ahead of time. It can kind of act as a way to incentivize actual people to come on full time. I think we all kind of are assuming somebody's just going to come on full time and save everything. Everybody wants this to be very good, but no one's really willing to put in the work until that's the case. And so, sort of, there is an angle. It's like, why not set up some basic parameters behind the token to attract people to come in?
I think the short-term funding we're getting support-wise from the grant, from the foundation, should cover that immediate, no person doing anything situation. So I don't think we should launch a token, which is a long-term thing, for just this short-term issue.
Yeah, I think people coming in and contributing their time and efforts doesn't necessarily require them to be paid, right? I mean, we're working on this thing. I'm not being paid for the stuff that we're doing, right? And we're building it because we see what the potential of a great product could be. So if financial incentive is necessarily what's going to make someone come join the project, then what happens when there isn't that much, right? And we've seen examples of projects in the open source world that no one's getting paid, right? No one's getting paid for Linux, and they're building they've built a fantastic thing. I mean, it's any open source project outside of blockchain, no one gets paid, really, right? So for that to necessarily be the reason why anyone wants to contribute is, I don't think it's necessarily right.
Yeah, but for the sake of those people who don't feel like we should ever have a token, does the potential or the probability of a token being introduced 6 months down the road reduce your willingness to work on it now? Because I think what's Matt's main point is that like this is not a discussion we should be having now. We can talk about it 6 months from now. But this will become a concern if you guys are worried that 6 months from now there'll be a token, and that means you are not interested to contribute now. You know what I mean? So that's wanted the vibe chat on that.
I think it's inevitable there will be a token, so why not spend some time to figure out what that might look like? We don't actually have to implement anything, but like if we're going to get community buy-in, then we should all have sort of a say in what that looks like, because human nature just demands that it will eventually happen. People are going to want to be incentivized to do work. There's talk about there being a lot of contributors right now, but I don't really see many commits or anything actually happening. Maybe I'm just missing it, but yeah, that's how I see the problem. Like, would you prefer for some random team to come in 6 months down the line and just make some really horrible, shitty tokenomics that everybody who has been contributing is left out, and it's just skewed in their favor? Like, I don't think makes much sense.
I think that's fine. I mean, at least those people are gonna work on it. If they do a terrible job, then we need to fork it again. I don't know.
There.
Yeah, I mean, so if they come in later on and they create this fantastic token that basically makes them rich and the platform is unusable, how does that benefit the project anyway? Right. I don't think it's inevitable that there will be a token. I think we can do this without a token. And at some point, I mean, the program can always be forked too. So I guess the folks that really want a token can create one, and the folks that don't will go a separate path, and we'll let the market decide.
Yeah, agree. I think it's very likely there will be um, multiple versions of this like order book thingy floating around, and people will try out new ideas. You know, there's always this like element when you have like a big stakeholder like Alameda was in the ecosystem, that some people are like, oh, there's nothing for me to do here. And that was true on the liquidity side. A lot of traders were like cautious to come to Solana because they thought, oh, this is just like trading on FTX. Um, and then on the same time, there were a bunch of people who were like maybe cautious to launch their own order book because, you know, that was like Alameda territory. So why would you mess with that? They're doing a good job. Why would you go in there? So I think this like mindset is probably now over. And with OpenBook, there's like a clear, you know, sign that people can start working on stuff, and if they want to do it as part of this like community effort. I think the best I can do maybe is like vouch with people that we funded. I thought that we do for the next hackathon maybe some Gitcoin grants. I've seen that like super popular in the Ethereum world, and I think it's something like Solana has not used so far. But the cool thing about it is that different parties, basically we can all write down what we want to have developed, right? If someone says, hey, I want I don't know, I want a new crank design, yada yada yada, this is how it should work, right? Then that could be one project, and then we could write down maybe we want this indexing service, or we want this UI to create a market, or we want this like reference UI to do this and that, right? Like some things that we just want, we can write them down, and then all the people who want to fund efforts can distribute their funding to these individual projects. And there's some quadratic funding mechanism behind it, so that all the projects kind of get like decent amount of funding, but the ones that a lot of people want to see in reality, they get the most funding. And I think they've wrapped it up pretty nicely, and it all works in crypto. So I'll be keen to try that out. Would be kind of cool to have maybe a call for proposals towards 1st of January. I think the hackathon starts officially 1st of February, but if we get everyone until New Year to like sit down a bit and like think about, hey, what would be really cool, then we can bring up all those proposals, and then the individual parties that want to give a grant, and I think everyone that's integrating with OpenBook probably wants to give a grant, if they can afford it, right? Just for the hope that there will be serious maintainers popping up over time. Yeah.
There's also going to be a pretty heavy focus on DeFi in the upcoming Solana hackathon, the one that I mentioned to you last week. It's probably going to start late January, early February, but in the interim between now and then, if we could get proposals from you guys of what you guys think would be good things to be advocating for people to build, in absence of like, we can also do the Gitcoin thing as well, but like if we get a list that like of basically just like RFPs that you guys can put together that we can post on the hackathon website, and there's going to be a lot of funding that's going to come from the foundation itself for prizes in the hackathon. So to the extent that we can get that list from you guys, that would be helpful, and we can, you know, tack that on as a piece of the hackathon.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think Gitcoin has like a special visibility thing. Like it reaches a bit further out, but it doesn't have as much reach in the Solana community, of course. So if we wanna, if we can basically amplify the message there through you guys, it would be great.
Yeah, I think this is quite a big contention point. Does anyone have like other gripes or opinions they want to bring up?
Yeah, I have an opinion. It's a bit, I mean, opposite to what we have heard till now, and that's like first let's get clear about our view of people building a club similar to Phoenix. Jari is not on the call, as I reckon, but I mean, how do we take that as? I mean, do we take that as a competition of sorts, or do we support or complement the efforts being put there? And if we have that, then let's say Phoenix goes live, or some other protocol as a club goes live, which has better cranking mechanisms, which is not which overcomes the current limitations of the serum program. Do we promote them, or how would that be? Because right now, or if the token goes live with OpenBook's Dex's native token, then would we have incentives to build a newer version, let's say V4 of this thing? Or how look at those things is important for us if we talk about a token being launched to incentivize people who are contributing now.
Well, first I'll say Jerry is on the call, so he could probably speak on the Phoenix side, but I think you never want one player in any industry. I mean, even if they are the best thing since sliced bread, they have full control over it. So you want a hedge in any case.
Yeah, we touched upon this at the start a bit. Like, I think most of us here agree that next generation clocks are coming, and when they come, people will use them. But there also needs to be a parallel order book which doesn't have rent seeking, which other users can use as an alternative, as a public good, for or yet other developers learn and build from. So that part sounds fine and answers your question, I think.
Yeah, it does, and that's where we have multiple protocols who are working to compose over OpenBook Dex as well. So yeah, as Max said, a Gitcoin grant, a Gitcoin grant thing would definitely be something to look up to, and that would provide incentives to people who are building on OpenBook Dex as a base layer. So composing programs would help bring liquidity as well. So that's something we should be looking up to.
Yeah. Anyone has any more opinions or gripes about this? Sorry.
So we have been talking a lot about the Gitcoin grants, but how sure are we that we will be able to, get enough of the grants to continue the development? I mean, without a token, I don't think we can go very far. My idea was that instead of straight away grants, we issue kind of a loan instead of the grants, and the loan will be paid back by the maker fees collected over the time. So in such a way, without even doing a token, we are actually doing a token in a way. But I hope it's, I hope I am able to explain what my point was.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another form of tokenomics, right? Like
But it will be
basically
in
a bond
USDC,
sale.
and you are not completely selling. I mean, there's nothing, not all the bad aspects of having a token. It's just you are providing a grant for, let's say, building some front end UI or anything like Skynet has said earlier. And once it gets completed, there will be a fixed term, like a uncollateralized loan. Like in 1 year, based on the maker fees that is generated by the protocol, the loan will be paid back. So instead of a grant, it's something like that, a token buyback mechanism, but without even having a token and just plain USDC loan.
I mean, you said it yourself as a token, right? It's just a convertible, so it's a fixed coupon kind of bond style versus something that feels more like equity or both are securities, by the way, and both are not to be offered to American customers, and hence the whole shebang, right? That
I mean,
so if you want to launch if you want to launch it, you can do it, right? There's no problems. But let's move on. And I don't see your proposal also on the list of proposals before. So it's kind of like, bad etiquette to bring up something like last minute and instead of following the structure for like what people wanted to, right? Like we asked everyone to submit their proposals for.
Yeah,
Ahead of
if no one has any more like detailed gripes, I would like to like briefly summarize so far for those who thought up who were it. So I think our main goal here is to, in the long term, is to just build a parallel open source public good version of Serum. we will do it in a way where we will not collect protocol fees for like for now. Our main primary goal is to gain traction. And if one day someone can always come onto the project full time and like lead the project, and then that person can come up with more detailed like fees, incentivization structures and stuff to keep the things going. And I think we'll expect multiple people doing so. So there will be faults, there will be competition then. But I think we can all agree here that like for the next 3 months, with some financial support from foundation, with our own like dedication to Solana, we can build this out and gain traction. I'm summarizing this because the next questions are moving away from this and talk about details like what fees to set and stuff. So if anyone has any last minute like strong, very strong objection, please raise. If not, we'll proceed. Okay. Sorry.
So just add, I don't think a token and a public good are mutually exclusive, for whatever that's worth. But I think it makes sense we can plod along as we are with sort of some temporary funding until some clear ideas come around the token.
Yeah, we can get traction first and figure this shit out later. Yeah, so I want to bring on the agenda to the next set, which is mainly like we want to change the fee model to incentivize market makers and UIs, which is the new PR that Max threw up. So there were some discussions there, and I would like to like give people a chance to voice out opinions now. So PR5 basically introduces 3 new fee tiers and distributes the fees to the UI, 50% to the UI and 50% to the market maker. The 3 tiers are stable for stable coins, flagship, Sol USDC, maybe 4 bips, and base, which is for like more illiquid token markets at 20 bips. So Max, you can kick it off.
Oh yeah, I think there was a lot of like really good feedback. Let me summarize maybe quickly. I think the general idea that the UI needs funding is something everyone is in favor, right? So that instead of sending it to the multi-sig, we have the code to send it to the UI. So let's just do that. There is one caveat here for people who are not familiar with how these things work on a technical level. If you run a bot, you don't need to pay the UI fee, okay? Like you can basically send the UI fee to yourself. The UI fee is really just for people using UIs. It's like a field. It's called referrer rebate. All UIs that use Serum use this. Mango, for instance, used it as well, but we kicked it back to the UI user. You can add like more layers of complexity on top, but it's basically a surefire way for someone who doesn't want to spend a lot of time, and especially who doesn't want to write their own on-chain program, to extract fees from the protocol by just hosting a UI. That is like, I think, one thing that a lot of people like. So I think we can probably discuss maybe how high that fee should be, right? And my proposal here was basically whatever, right? Just like same as the maker rebate. But then I think there were a bunch of points coming up, and I think Space Monkey mentioned that he thinks that like more than 4 basis points maker rebate is probably an issue, because it artificially it creates this like stopgap in the market. And I think part of this proposal was basically a 10 basis point maker to taker transfer, which would mean that spreads are a bit impacted there. And he also mentioned in his proposal that he, as the maker, can just control this part of the fee function completely dynamic himself. So he can just quote 10 basis points wider, and then the taker needs to pay 10 more basis points compared to a market rate. Kind of questioning.
Just to sorry, Max, just to clarify. So it's more about the taker fee. If you, or the taker plus maker, if you increase the sum of taker and maker, basically you're forcing a minimum spread right?
The net
If you just keep it, sorry.
Net zero. If you the
Yeah, but
maker is always negative and it's always the same height as the taker.
but if you set it to like really high, let's say like
That's not
50
the
bips
proposal.
taker. Sure. But anyway, like the problem is that I don't want, like, you can't have a minimums. You cannot force a minimum spread because then you're just forcing me to code. Like I can't even control it, right? Because the fee is very high. So the taker has to pay at least X or N bips, which could be very wide. So it's, it makes sense to just keep it normal, like 4 bips, and then the makers just decide how wide they want to code.
Yeah. So
Like it
right
doesn't
now
make
the
sense that liquid
yes.
markets cost more. Sorry.
Yes. So the enforced spread right now is 0, right?
Well, no, right now it's 4 bips taker.
You mean
So,
okay? So in the on DevNet it's
so that's
0,
8.
and on mainnet it's 4. Okay.
Yeah. So right now it's 8 bips minimum spread.
You mean because you add both sides?
Yeah, because it's
Let's
4
talk
bips
about
taker
fee.
fee. So
Let's just talk about fee and not about like, let's not make it more complicated, okay? Like, because I feel like now you're adding like double factor in there and then the numbers don't match up, right?
sure. Yeah, you're forcing a 4 bips for the taker. Yeah.
Yes, right now the fee is 4 basis points for the taker if he has 0 serum, and if he has a mega serum, it's 2.5, right? 2.4.
Yeah.
For the taker.
Yeah.
And this is right. This is the current one. You said in your proposal you wouldn't like to raise taker fee beyond that, as if So the pull request has 10 basis points taker and 10 basis points rebate to maker, which is net 0. Do you? I wasn't sure about your proposal, if you have an issue with that or not, because you said, oh, we shouldn't raise it above 4 basis points, but the net fee is actually 0. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, the problem with net fee 0 is even if you say 10 bips taker and then all of that is a rebate, negative 10 maker rebate, I would still not be able to do it because right now on some markets I quote 10 bips. So if you like, even if I reduce my spread to, I cannot make the spread negative, So there is no way for me to provide the same spread if you make the taker fee so high, even if I have a rebate, because at some point the bid is going to cross the ask, right?
Yes. Okay,
so there is.
Yeah. Okay, so it's defunct. Basically, what I proposed is defunct for you in specific markets, and we would need to add those, and that's in particular for the marinade and social soul, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like marinade right now, I'm quoting like 15 bips right now. So if you make it like 15 bips, that's spread, meaning 7.5 on each side, if you want to think about it this way. So if you make that 10 on every side, so it will be impossible to quote that same spread, I think. Well, actually, it would be, but like there is a point at which you cross. So I don't see the point to begin with,
Okay.
Like, why increase the fee on the liquid markets? I think this is, AMMs do that because they are market makers, right? The exchange is just, the volume doesn't matter where it's coming from, which market it's coming from, is the same.
They include the spread, in the fee.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. No, I think that's the correct argument. Okay, so we'll need to change that. I think let me also continue with the overview. So in particular, the per market fees, I think some people like them, some people didn't like them. You found a very concrete point where they don't work, right? This is in case for the MSOL, social soul, but you also think on a more forward-looking basis, and us not updating the market IDs all the fucking time would probably be good that we figure out a setting that makes sense right now. Okay. Then I think there was some other. I think Kirill wanted per market fee tiers. I know it. Kirill, are you here?
Yes. Yeah, hi guys, I'm here. Yeah, but I think that by space market makes sense. So instead of just having per market, now I can see how it can complicate things. So maybe just one. flat fee for everyone, every market could make sense.
Flat fee for every market could make sense, right? I have one proposal. So I made, because of the code structure and I didn't want to think about it a lot, I made the GUI fee exactly the maker rebate, exactly the taker fee. That was just like for code sanity, so I could write easy tests. We can probably shift that. And here's the reason why I made these like high fees for the shitty markets, right? Or like, not saying shitty, but not the flagship market, right? I said, okay, let's do a 20 basis points fee, because then for the taker, because then 10 of that goes to the GUI. And I think GUIs had like a spot in Solana. I think when Serum launched, they were making roughly 5 basis points, and that was great. People liked that. That seemed to be sufficient fee. And I remember on Mango, when we set the GUI, basically the GUI or protocol fee, right? When we reduced it, it didn't really have an impact on the market from like 5 to 1. It didn't really change a lot. So it seems like those things, like the arbitrage volume goes up, etc., and and so on, right? The market becomes a little bit more efficient, but the actual usage of the protocol doesn't really increase or decrease, no matter if the UI user pays 20 basis points, 10 basis points, or 5. The general liquidity issue in Solana is that like there's so little liquidity, sometimes you pay 200 or 500. Like if you want to go buy Marinate right now, good luck getting anything under 200 basis points, right? So that's why I thought, okay, it would be really nice if you can have the larger fees on those very illiquid coins, because anyways, the market maker is gonna earn a fair share, right? Based on the bids and asks. They can control it fully, but the GUI can't really control it. And so we need to find a setting there that kind of works for them. I don't know if you guys are running a mobile app, right? You basically live off referrals, right, from Binance and other trading venues. Yeah. What do you
And not
think
only
is
us, a lot of other platforms as well.
Yeah. How much do you think is like a good GUI rebate? Like one that is like, oh, I want to build a GUI for this. Like how many?
Well, as I mentioned in my thread, I mentioned that, for example, Binance, in order to drive a lot of traffic, they have designed a very good rebate and referral system, and they get up to 30% of their entire volume from those front ends. And front end doesn't just mean the general trading interface. It could be a bot, like a bot platform, a social trading app, or some other things that presents the market in a certain way for people to trade more. Like, for example, I don't know, indices construction, for example. And those services generally, they can get up to half of their revenue from those rebates. A lot of big players in this space, they get roughly this number, about half of their revenue comes from rebates, half from premium subscription, like we do have, like there's a monthly subscription. And this is consistent across the market, not only us. So
if you would break it down on a basis point level, like because you said it's like 30% of the taker fee,
sure.
Right? What do you think? How much?
Yeah, I've looked at in my Twitter thread, I looked at all the commissions for the majority of the spot markets. I looked at Kraken and Binance, Coinbase, OKX, and I think Binance could be a good reference point. And Binance's commissions for the takers, they are roughly 10 basis points, and they drop to 4 basis points at after reaching a certain threshold, like 400 million traded or something like that. And
100 million.
100 million. Okay. And the taker fee starts with 10 basis points and it gets dropped to, what is it? Something like 0.1. Can't see here.
And so you would get, of those 10 bibs, you would get 30% on Binance?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, on both spot and futures markets.
And on do you also get things like that on Coinbase or Kraken?
Yeah, yeah. We not on Kraken. Kraken has a shitty referral program. Coinbase cannot by law have by an American law they cannot have the percentage rebates. They can pay like those $10 referral fee on sign up, but all the offshore exchanges, like all the Chinese ones, like OKX, like FTX, used to have pretty decent referral program. And obviously Binance as market leader has one of the best one. Bybit has a good one and it's similar. So something like 30% of everything, from 20 to 30%, up to half of all the commissions they collect or they get referred to goes to the referrer or a broker who directs the order of their clients to this platform.
Yeah, the chat has another good suggestion. If the idea that like these fees is mainly for UIs, why not reduce the fee to maybe 2 bips and 10 or 5 bips, and then just have then the UI collect it completely, and then any MM just runs the spread on their own. So if the MM wants to do 3 bit spread, 5 bit spread, 10 bit spread, they can.
I think so too. It sounds to me like the most reasonable proposal. Yeah, Dorian from Infinity made that one, and I was also playing with that in my head now during the conversation. We can probably have like a Should we keep it per market, or should we have like a general, I don't know, four bibs for every GUI? There's like the GUI gets 4 bibs, that's it, and the maker taker 0 apart from that. So there's no maker rebate.
I think we're going to have to do something for the market makers. There's really no getting around it. We were market makers. There's no incentive to quote the market that could be volatile and quote a tight spread, hope to make money. You're going to get killed every time, right? To do a tight spread, you have to have some sort of a rebate or a discount of some sort. Otherwise, I'm not going to quote both sides of the market. I'm just going to watch the market or quote one side and see where the market moves. Okay? So in order to get the liquidity that the GUI themselves are going to earn an income, you're going to need those market makers, and there's no getting around that. You can't incentivize a market maker to come in and hope to have a fantastic strategy, algo strategy that they can make money from. It's almost impossible to do it on a tight spread, at least competitively anyway.
So this is kind of the drawback, right? I know that it's like if we go out and say there's 20 basis points maker rebate, we'll have 10 bots trading next week. It's a very easy way to get people into the door, right? So that was my other intention with the high maker rebate, was like it doesn't really cost anyone anything, right? But it will get people to start quoting very quickly because there's this psychological thing around the maker rebate that people feel they're attracted, right?
Just to add one thing here. Sorry guys. So if you want to give 20, I mean you have to get that from the taker, right? And I think most people use Jupe.ag, Jupiter. So the flow wouldn't even come to OpenBook. So it wouldn't, like, where is the volume going to come from to pay for that 20 bips?
Yeah, 20 is high. We need to have something. I don't know what the exact number is. We need to have something. It can't be 0. And we can't ask the market makers to come up with a strategy that's going to make money on a tight spread. It has to be something. Maybe it's not 20. It definitely can't be 20, but it can't be 0.
I guess I understand, like, in the negotiations with AMMs, it will help to have, like, oh, here's a maker rebate. But we're kind of, like, taking the maker rebate from them and just giving it back to them, right? Like, they could have just coded it into their MM strategy. So I think I think that attracting MMs are important, and that needs to be done in another way, like grants or like giving like top 3 maker volumes, something stuff like that. But if you're just taking away fees from them and then giving it back to them as a rebate, I'm not so sure whether that works.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense if you give the rebate by increasing the taker fee, it defeats the point. I can just quote wider. Like, why would you do that?
So quoting wider doesn't necessarily make you money if you're, especially, I'm not talking about the AMM now. This is just traditional market making. For the most part, you want to lean against something, right? So a lot of market makers and in traditional markets, you're leading against a fair value price, right? And for the most part, you're just trying to scratch. You're not trying to even make money. You're just trying to scratch, and your income is going to come from the uh, from the fees, from the rebates, all right? And that's what we did. We did it on Kraken. We did it on Coinbase. We did it on ErisX. We are essentially just trying to scratch. It's tough to have a strategy, even if it's 50 basis points wide, right? Unless you control that market, you could get filled on your 50 basis point wide, and the market still tanks on you, and you're still going to lose money, right? Because if you're going to constantly quote, you need to have your risk in there, and at some point you have to puke, and you can't keep quoting while the market is going against you. So for people that want to really make markets and create genuine liquidity, they're for the most part scratching a lot, and telling them to have a wider spread and thereby make money is it's tough.
Are you talking about the illiquid markets, or are you talking about like Sol and MSol and these ones?
It's even worse in the liquid markets. Both markets, it doesn't matter. We make markets on Bitcoin with a tight spread. If when it moves against you, you're going to puke. You have to puke. So when you get filled, you basically want to offload your position somewhere, right? And that's because you're not trying to. It's not a strategy. You're just trying to create liquidity, and your strategy is to make money from quoting both sides of the market. Don't forget, as a market maker, you're on both sides. So one of your sides is wrong, right? One of the sides that you're quoting is wrong, and if you try to make it tight, then it's one side is really, really very wrong. All right. So how do you get the liquidity that you want? With Bitcoin also can move very quickly, right? So
Yeah, I do see your points, but I do want to like suggest maybe we can roll with reducing the fee, making it 100% to the UI. I think that would bring taker volume, and then we will have smaller MMs like Space Monkey who are willing to MM under this set of criteria. And then as we gain traction and move, we can, if we are finding it difficult to bring on like large MMs like GSR or whatever, and if a major rebate is what they're asking for, which I doubt, because I think what they will want is they just want like free money, right? They just want like tokens and whatever. So we can visit this conversation again later. If that makes sense to you, I would like that to be what we do now.
Hey guys, Asker here from Companion. If you don't mind, I just have some quick input here. I think people completely forget that there's also, you have to get people to trade in the first place. You need liquidity, you need customers. And by removing a maker rebate, even those that just consider themselves like semi-professional, amateurist traders, they're gonna hate it. One of the reasons that BitMEX got so big in the first place during 2017 was exactly that people actually had an ability to trade the market and generally make money from it, from the maker rebate. And I think it would be a huge mistake to not let market makers and retail and whoever want to quote make a little bit of money. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah. I think we can continue the discussion in the issues. There's more things on the agenda, and we're a bit over time. But I think summary: as little maker rebate as necessary. there is a positive aspect to a maker rebate, mainly being marketing and bringing people in with the prospect of free money, right? And then on the GUI hoster fee side, we should probably just find really good numbers for those that are industry standard and dial them in precisely. And it seems like there is no need for market specifica as much. So, but yeah, the GitHub issue is up there, the pull request. Throw me more comments in. I'll propose some options there, and then I would aim for merging this pull request end of the week. Yeah, and until then you can like try to make your own or annoy the fuck out of me. So I change it. Cool. So Julio.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Max. I think this is a good like compromise. We'll improve upon this as we talk to more MMs. But we have one last important agenda item, which is the multi-seats. So basically, we want to decentralize the multi-seats a bit more. So the multi-seats control the upgrade authority, and we want to introduce some people in Asia region UTC +8 to join the multi-seats. So quickly, I would like to like ask whether anyone or even Max has like criteria for who a good multi-seat is, or even specific names that should be on it.
Oh yeah, we have a list. Let me dig that out. Give me a second. So it's by the way an open spreadsheet. So if people wanna be on the multi-sig and they're well known and docs, then not an issue. But yeah, the goal was to have like different time zones. I'll post the sheet in here. Here you go. Second page, multi-sig, that's where it is. I think, let me see, I can quickly mark time zones so we see where we are. These are like plus, this is like Europeans. This is American, roughly, right?
Yeah, so while he's doing
And then we
that,
have 3 people in Asia. Oh, there's 2 more people. Okay, Nicholas, Solana FM, great. Solana FM, Nicholas. And then there was another suggestion from you. Tristan, yes.
but close source, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we all know Tristan. See that, Tristan. Okay, that looks good. Let's get the public keys in there. We need the wallets. I think, and then we need to decide on a threshold. Like if we want, it's now we're talking about 13 people on a multi-sig, so the threshold could be 6. Yeah. So 6. Sorry, 7. 7 of 13. That would mean like no time zone alone even is able to do anything, which I think is fine. There's always some overlap. Most of these people anyways don't sleep.
Sorry, go on. Max, you there?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't hear the question.
Oh yeah, so no, nothing. Just ran quiet. So also to make sure that like most people here are like okay with this, or want to introduce thresholds or something. Because like this is as decentralized as OpenBook will get, right? Like this is the decentralized aspect where the outgrid authority is controlled by these people. So
Yeah, my input is, as someone not on it, I think it's the best decentralized shot we have so far. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, we also had some discussions with lawyers about it. Apparently, it's like as long as this is like not for profit and we don't take any protocol fees, there is basically no liability from being on the multi-sig unless you do shit, right? So of course, if you start defrauding people by releasing like bad code and or stealing from people, there's liability there, but there's no per se liability just arising from regular use of the service for others. So I would say we probably want to have a pretty slow approach to announcing new versions, new fees, etc., and let them sink in before we do something. But I would say we probably. I mean, I don't expect too much development until the hackathon, and then maybe afterwards a little bit, and then hopefully there's people who want to take over from there. Yep.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, anyone from the floor? Okay, I guess we are good for now. So that covered all my agenda items. Thanks everyone for coming today. It's 1 hour and we went over by 15 minutes, but I guess that's not that bad. I will summarize. I will touch up on the notes and it will be open source onto the doc. Everyone can view it. And for those issues that were cut off halfway, we will resume conversations like elsewhere. I think there's an idea to like hold another smaller community call specifically focusing on like the MM stuff or like stuff that we went a lot in detail today. So if you want that, DM me and I'll follow up as well. Thanks, Sarah. Does anyone else have any final words to say from like Max or Michael or anyone else?
Probably want to set up a channel for that MM. It's going to take a long time for us to resolve it.
Yeah, I agree. I'll get a channel up for those with the contributor roles.
Yeah, from my side, nothing really. There's the Serum Dex UI and Serum TS have PRs. People can review those, submit them. The immediate funding, like I said, Solana Foundation should be stepping in. If any other benefactors, such as firms, want to join in, contact Soju or other people.
Can I just say one final thing? I don't know if I made it I made it sound like I'm against the maker rebate. I just wanted to say that the taker fee shouldn't go up much or shouldn't go up at all to continue having volume because there is barely any volume right now. So I have most of the volume of the exchange and I'm happy to continue coding even without the maker rebate and for the taker fee to go to the GUI or the developers. But I'm not against having a maker rebate. I just don't want to increase the taker fees.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, I have a question about further development. I heard a lot about Bonfida making something that are going to become Serum version 4, but since the incident, there is no news from them. Do you know about it?
You can deploy it on mainnet if you want. The code I think is open source. I was reading through it. A bunch of people audited it already. It's definitely a different beast than Serum v3. There's a lot of effort on a thing they call the asset agnostic, so it can be used for building derivatives protocols and stuff like that. So it's just a different, it's a different program. Serum v3 is really a spot market. Serum v4 is a spot market built on top of another program, and hence it's a bit more complicated to understand. Yeah, you can find the repos on GitHub. It's github.com/bonfida/serum, I think, -v4. But I can post a link, yeah?
Okay, so there is no intention to merge it back into OpenBook. It will be on its own thing.
I have no idea. I mean, anyways, the programs are not compatible. So the only way to update it to that version would be to make a new program on mainnet and then tell everyone to stop trading on OpenBook and start trading on V4. That's just the state of affairs, how big upgrades like that work. So you know, if that's the best choice for everyone, I don't know, right? Probably people would start to like slowly migrate at their own pace, if they want to.
Yeah, we can follow up on like a lot of like smaller async questions later. So I think we are done here. I think we covered everything. The doc will contain what we've covered. I'll upload the recording. So thanks everyone for coming, and please stay around the Discord and continue like chiming in. I think we've gotten this far, and like even foundations coming in with like financial support now. So we'll make it. Thanks guys.
Thanks, Sergio.
Thank you.
Thanks Max. Thanks Micah for coming, and Brian, and everyone else.
Thank you. Bye.